talk is Four Noble Truths by again Ajahn Chah, and the footnotes mention that Ajahn Chah was in England and he visited Manjushri Institute, and at that institute he had given this talk to the monks and the
Tibetan monks,
Tibetan
Buddhist,
monks.
कौन सी 19?
And so I think the talk starts with this Ajahn Chah questioning about how well are the monks, how well the monks do meditation here, and he discusses his own dilemma as a teacher. That as a teacher, when you teach the monks, they seldom follow their teaching, and they'll either be in the sleepy state or they know it, but they'll be lazy to follow those teachings. So I'll just read those things. So today I have been invited by the abbot to give you a teaching. So I'll ask you all to sit quietly and compose your minds. Due to the language barrier, we must make use of translators. So if you do not pay proper attention, you may not understand. My stay here has been very pleasant. Both the master and you, his followers, have been very kind and all friendly and smiling, as benefits those who are practicing the truth Dhamma. Your property too is very inspiring, but so big. I admire your dedication in renovating it to establish a place for practicing the Dhamma. Having been a teacher for many years now, I have been through my share of difficulties. At present, there are altogether about 40 branch monasteries of my monastery. But
77 up to 300 है शायद.
I think the talk when it says in 2010 this was recorded, it mentions that there are 300. So probably they
Now
might
it will
have
be even more.
even more. Yeah. So, but even these days, I have followers who are hard to teach. Some know but don't bother to practice. Some don't know and don't try to find out. I don't know what to do with them. Why do human minds like this? Being ignorant is not so good, but even when I tell them, they still don't listen. I don't know what more I can do. Please, people are so full of doubts in their practice. They're always doubting. They all want to go to Nibbana, but they don't want to walk the path. It's baffling. When I tell when I tell them to meditate, they are afraid. Or if not afraid, they are just plain sleepy. Mostly they don't like to do things I don't teach. When I met the Venerable Abbot here, I asked him with his. I asked when I met the Venerable Abbot here, I asked him what his followers were like. He said they are the same.
अवार्ड भी बैठे हैं और उनके डिसाइपल्स बैठे हैं.
This is the pain of being a teacher.
लेकिन जिसके मन में जैसे उनके मन में इच्छा नहीं होती धर्म की तरफ,
वहाँ पे क्योंकि
उसको
ट्रेडिशन
कैसे
है ना,
मोटिवेट करें?
नहीं वहाँ पे ट्रेडिशन है ना कि लोग मॉन्क्स बनते ही हैं. सो थाईलैंड में तो इसलिए वो लोग आउट ऑफ ट्रेडिशन बहुत लोग आते हैं ना. अब जो लोग बाहर से आ रहे हैं आउट ऑफ एफर्ट, उनमें तो फिर भी पॉसिबिलिटी ज़्यादा है कि वो इंक्विजिटिव हैं टू फाइंड आउट.
I think I was reading somewhere in either Najaan Sumito's interview, somebody was interviewing him, and it was a Westerner for a Western magazine, Western Buddhist magazine. And one of the question was that what is the difference between monks in Thailand and monks in England? He said the monks here are very dedicated, and he obviously gave the same reason that you said. There it is because it is a tradition. When people come out of tradition, here if somebody reaches to that level of commitment that he wants to become a Buddhist monk in a Western country, he has to cross all those bars, and that is why they are very dedicated and very disciplined.
वहाँ पे तो ऐसा भी है ना, बच्चा बहुत शैतान है, वो
3 महीने के लिए जाओ
मैनेज भी जाए।
सुइया ऐसे भेज देते कुछ लोग, तो ऐसे ही करते हैं।
क्या सूर्य का
कंपनी वाले भेजते थे
कंपनी वाले भेजते थे
मेडिटेशन के लिए। हाँ
20 लोगों को ग्रुप बना के भेज देंगे, वो बेचारे इंटरेस्टेड हैं,
नौकरी बचाने के लिए आ गए हैं इसलिए।
कई लोग साफ हो जाता है।
तो साधना में भी तो पर्सनली कुछ
आते हैं, कई लोग आते हैं, माँ बाप भेज देते हैं जबरदस्ती बच्चों को, बच्चे माँ बाप को जबरदस्ती भेज देते हैं, दोनों तरफ से।
वो भी होता है सर।
ऐसा भी हुआ है। हाँ, देखो
हमें आंटी से पूछना चाहिए।
दीपक ने जबरदस्ती भेजा था कि नहीं भेजा था? दीपक आप बताओ।
So actually,
दीपक ने मगर बहुत कोशिश की, मतलब he did for several years.
this actually I can tell my personal experience. When Rajesh and I used to talk, and Rajesh introduced me कि he has done this course, and उस समय थोड़ा stress level बढ़ा हुआ भी था, so I decided
सिर्फ उस समय
उस समय बड़ा हुआ था, तो I decided कि करके देखते हैं, but I knew कि घर में समझाने की कोशिश करूँगा तो किसी को समझ में तो आना नहीं है, and same with wife also. Obviously they'll first ask for questions and कहाँ है, क्यों जाना चाहते हो, क्या प्रॉब्लम है, and I generally never have that patience कि मैं समझा पाऊँ कि क्यों करना चाहता हूँ. So one day I declared that I'm going, and eventually in few days I went to the course. But after I had gone, my mom became very angry. What has happened to him? And she wanted to know from Bhavna that कि आप दोनों की क्या लड़ाई चल रही है. But I think
लड़के गया है, वो शांति के लिए है.
But I think hats off to Bhavna that she calmed down my mother. कि गया है तो आ जाएंगे, अब आप इतना तो विश्वास रखो अपने बेटे पे. So when I came back, I think things were as normal, right? But slowly my mother also asked me questions, and she became once got energy to do the course, and I think the settings became right, and she eventually did one course. So it was not the pure just force.
Force नहीं है, but he did lot of things. He actually took some of the cassettes and videos and gave it to her, and actually that created a lot of inspiration, because otherwise आपको पता नहीं होता क्या है वहाँ पे.
That's what helps actually.
एक्चुअली वो हिंदी में बात करते थे,
हाँ.
और बड़े उनकी पत्नी साथ में बैठी होती थी, एक अलग तरह का एक
Gives a good feeling.
gives a good feeling, yes.
It's a household business, ऐसा नहीं है, कोई चक्कर नहीं है. वो डाउट रहता है ना लोगों को कि
सबको रहता है सबको.
गोयनका जी कहते हैं मेरी प्रमाण मेरे साथ में है.
हाँ वो अक्सर बोलते थे.
So to continue further, the teaching I will present to you today is a way to solve problems in the present moment, in the present life. Some people say that they have so much work to do, they have no time to practice the Dhamma. What can you do? They ask. I ask them, don't you breathe While you are working, they reply, yes, of course we breathe. So, how come you have time to breathe when you are so busy? They don't know what to answer. If you simply have sati while working, you still have the plenty of time to practice. Practicing meditation is just like breathing. While working, we breathe. While sleeping, we breathe. While sitting, while sitting down, we breathe. Why do we have time to breathe? Because we see the importance of breath.
So we don't read because we see the importance of breath. We read because it naturally comes. We don't.
It is a subconscious activity most of the time.
नेचुरली आता है
जब अस्थमा होता है तब मालूम पड़ता है अब दिक्कत हो रही है अब जान निकल रही है.
We can always find time to breathe. In the same way, if we see the importance of meditation practice, we will find time to practice. Have you ever have any of you ever suffered? Have you ever been happy? Right here is the truth. This is where you must practice the Dhamma. Who is it who is happy? The mind is happy. Who suffers? The mind suffers. Wherever their things arise, that's where they cease. Have you experienced happiness? Have you experienced suffering? This is our problem. If you know suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, the way leading to the end of suffering, we can solve the problem. And the next paragraph, the Ajahn Chah gives this the comparison between the ordinary suffering and the extraordinary suffering. There are two kinds of suffering, ordinary suffering and the extraordinary kind. Ordinary suffering is the suffering which is inherent nature of conditions. Standing is suffering, sitting is suffering, lying down is suffering. There is suffering that is inherent in all the conditioned phenomena. Even the Buddha experienced these things. He experienced comfort and pain, but he recognized them as conditions in nature. He knew how to overcome these ordinary natural feelings of comfort and pain through understanding their true nature. Because he understood this natural suffering, those feelings didn't upset him. So I think ordinary suffering, Ajahn Chah equates with natural suffering. The important kind of suffering is second kind, the suffering that creeps in from outside, the extraordinary suffering. If we are sick, we may have to get an injection from the doctor. When the needle pierces the skin, there is some pain which is only natural. When the needle is withdrawn, the pain disappears. This is like the ordinary kind of suffering. It's no problem. Everybody experiences it. The extraordinary suffering is a suffering that arises from what we call upadana, grasping onto things. This is like an injection without syringe. This is like an injection with a syringe filled with poison. There is no longer an ordinary kind of pain. It's a pain which ends in death. This is similar to the suffering which arises from grasping. Wrong view, not knowing the impermanent nature of all the conditioned things, is another kind of problem. Conditioned things are the realm of samsara, not wanting to change. If we think like this, we must suffer. When we think that the body is ourselves or belonging to us, we are afraid when we see it change. Consider the breath. Once it comes in, it must go out. Having gone out, it must come in. This is a nature. This is how we manage to live. things don't function in this way. Things is how this is how the conditions are, but we don't realize it. Suppose we lost something. If we thought that the object was really ours, we would brood over it. If we couldn't see it as a conditioned thing, faring according to the laws of the nature, we would experience suffering. But if you breathe in, can you live? Conditioned things much naturally change in this way. To see this is to see the Dhamma, to see nature change. We live dependent on this change. We know when we know how things are, then we can let go of them. The practice of Dhamma is to develop understanding of the way things so that suffering doesn't arise. If we think wrongly, we are at odds with the world, at odds with the Dhamma, with the truth. Suppose you were sick and had to go into hospital. Most people think, please don't let me die, I want to be better. This is wrong thinking. It leads to suffering. You have to think you have to think to yourself, if I recover, I recover. If I die, I die. This is right thinking because you can't ultimately control conditions. If you think like this, whether you die or recover, you can't go wrong. You don't have to worry.
अनुरम बताते हैं ना, जब वो बीमार हुए थे एक बार बहुत ज़्यादा, तो हॉस्पिटलाइज, तो कई दिनों तो पड़े रहे, तो किसी ने बताया कि वहाँ हॉस्पिटल में देखा बहुत शोर हो रहा है, तो वो अजान चाह रहे हैं हॉस्पिटल में, तो आपको देखने आ रहे हैं, मेरे को देखने आ रहे हैं, आज तक तो कभी जाते ही नहीं किसी को देखने।
At that time he was still with
तो अच्छा मेरे को देखने आ रहे हैं, मेरी किस्मत की बात है, आई थिंक टुडे बाय हिज ब्लेसिंग्स आई विल बी ऑलराइट। बहुत दिनों से बीमार हूँ, तो गए कहते उसके पास देखा, एंड देन ही सैट देयर फॉर सम टाइम एंड देन टोल्ड हिम ब्रह्मवासम का नाम है, ओनली टू थिंग्स कैन हैपन, आइदर यू विल रिकवर और यू विल डाई, एंड वॉकड आउट।
तो पता ही होता है ऐसे।
It just came to remind him na, that you are holding on to
अच्छा,
becoming well. He said, I was so furious. इसलिए आना था मुझे। And then he says, when he went away, then I realized that what he said was the truth, of course. And then I started recovering. Of course, हम लोग को यहाँ कोशिश नहीं करनी चाहिए किसी को ये कहने की, मुश्किल हो जाएगी।
नहीं, अपने आप को
अपने आप को कह सकते हैं, बिल्कुल।
wanting to get better at all costs and afraid of the thought of dying. This is the mind which doesn't understand conditions. You should think, if I get better, that's fine. If I don't get better, that's fine. This way we can't go wrong. We don't have to be afraid or cry because we have turned ourselves into the way things are. The Buddha saw clearly. His teaching is always relevant, never outdated. It never changes. In the present day, it's still the way it is. It hasn't changed. By taking this teaching to heart, we can gain the reward of peace and well-being. In the teachings, there is the reflection of not self. This is not myself. This does not belong to me. But people don't like to listen to this kind of teaching because they are attracted to the idea of self. This is the cause of suffering. You should take note of this. Today, a woman asked me how to deal with anger. I told her that the next time she gets angry, to I told her that the next time she gets angry, to wind up her alarm clock and put it in front of her. Then to give herself 2 hours for the anger to go away. If it was really her anger, she would probably tell it to go away like this. In 2 hours, it will be gone. But it isn't really ours to command. Sometimes in 2 hours, it's still not gone, and at other times, in 1 hour, it's gone already. Holding on to anger as a personal possession will cause suffering. If it really belonged to us, it would have to obey us. If it doesn't obey us, then that means it's only a deception. Don't fall for it. Whether the mind is happy or sad, don't fall for it. Whether the mind loves or hates, don't fall for it. It's all a deception. Have you ever been angry? When you are angry, does it feel good or bad? If it feels bad, then why don't you throw that feeling away? Why? What? Why bother to keep it? How can you say that you are wise and intelligent when you hold on to such things? Since the day we are born, how many times has the mind tricked you into anger? Some days the mind even caused a whole family to quarrel or cause you to cry all night. All and yet we still continue to get angry. We still hold on to things and suffer. If you don't see suffering, you will have to keep suffering indefinitely and with no change for respite. The world of samsara is like this. If we know the way, if we know the way it is, we can solve the problem. The Buddha's teaching states that there is no better means to overcome the suffering than to see that this is not myself, this is not mine. This is the greatest method, but we don't usually pay attention to this. When suffering arises, we simply cry over it without learning from it. Why is that so? We must take a good hard look at things to develop the Buddha, the one who knows. Take note, some of you may not be aware that this Dhamma teaching. Take note, some of you may not be aware of that this is Dhamma teaching. I'm going to give you Dhamma that's outside the scriptures. Most people read the scriptures but don't see the Dhamma. Today I'm going to give you the teaching that's outside the scriptures. Some people may miss the point or not understand it. Suppose two people are walking together and see a duck and a chicken. One of them says, "Why isn't the chicken like a duck? Why isn't the duck like a chicken?" He wants the chicken to be a duck and the duck to be a chicken. It's impossible. If it's impossible, then even if that person were to wish for a duck to be a chicken and chicken to be a duck for the rest of their life, it would not come to pass because a chicken is a chicken and a duck is a duck. As long as that person thought like that, he would suffer. The other person might see that the chicken is a chicken and a duck is a duck, and that's all there is to it. There is no problem. He sees rightly. If you want the duck to be a chicken and chicken to be a duck, you will really go suffer. In the same way, the law of anicca states that all things are impermanent. If you want things to be permanent, you are going to suffer. Whenever impermanence shows itself, you are going to be whenever impermanence shows itself, you're going to be disappointed. One who sees the things are naturally impermanent will be at ease. There will be no conflict. The one who wants things to be permanent is going to have conflict, maybe even losing sleep over it. This is to be ignorant of aniccham, impermanence, the teaching of Buddha. If you want to know the Dhamma, you should look. You should. If you want to know Dham, if you want to know the Dhamma, where you should look, you must look within the body and the mind. You won't find it in the shelves of the bookcase. To really see the Dhamma, you have to look within the body and the mind. They are the only two things. The mind is not visible to the physical eye. It must be seen with the mind's eye. Before the Dhamma can be realized, you must know where to look. The Dhamma that is in the body must be seen in the body, and that and with what and with what do we look at the body? We look at the body with the mind. You don't find the Dhamma looking anywhere else because both happiness and suffering arise right here, only here. Or have you seen the happiness arising in the trees, or from the river, or from the rivers, or the weather? Happiness and suffering are the feelings which arise in our own bodies and minds. Therefore, the Buddha tells us to know the Dhamma right here. The Dhamma is right here. We must look right here. The master may tell you to look at the Dhamma in the books, but if you think that this is where the Dhamma really is, you will never see it. Having looked at the books, you must reflect on the teachings inwardly. Then you can understand the Dhamma. Where do the real Dhamma exist? It exists right here in the body and the mind of ours. This is the essence of contemplation practice. When we do this, wisdom will arise in our minds. When there is wisdom in our minds, then no matter where we look, there is Dhamma. We will see Aniccham, Dukkham, Anatta at all times. Aniccham means transient, Dukkham. If we cling to things that are transient, we must suffer because they are not us or ours. But if we don't see this, we will always see them as being ourself and belonging to us. This means that you don't see the truth of convention. You don't understand conventions. For example, all of us are sitting here have names. Are our names born with us or they are assigned to us afterwards? Do you understand? This is convention. Is convention useful? Of course, it's useful. For example, suppose there are four men, A, B, C, D. They all must have their individual names for convenience in communication and working together. If we wanted to speak to Mr. A, we would call Mr. A. He would come and not others. This is the convenience of convention. But when we look deeply into the matter, we will see that really there isn't anybody there. We will see transcendence. There is only earth, water, fire, the four elements. This is all there is to the body of ours. But we don't want to see it in this way because of the clinging power of Atta Vadu Ada Vadu Adana.
Attavad, Upadana, Upda. Atta के प्रति उपादान, grasping of self.
Yes. If we were to look clearly, we would see that there isn't really much to what we call a person. The solid part is the earth element, the fluid part is the water element, the part which provides the heat is called the fire element. When we break things down, we see that there is only earth, water, wind, fire. Where is a person to be found? There isn't one. That's why the Buddha taught that there is no higher practice than to see that this is not myself and does not belong to me. They are simply conventions. If we understand clearly in this way, we'll be at the peace. If we realize in the they are simply conventions. If we understand everything clearly in this way, we will be at peace. If we realize in the present moment the truth of impermanence, that things are not ourselves or belonging to us, then when we disintegrate, we are at the peace with them because they don't belong to anybody anyway. They are merely the elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. It is difficult for people to see this because even so, it is not beyond our ability. If we can see this, we can. If we can see this, we will find contentment. We will not. We will not have so much anger, greed, or delusion. There will always be Dhamma in our hearts. There will be no need for jealousy and spite because everybody is simply earth, water, wind, and fire. There is nothing more to them than this. When we accept this truth, we will see that the truth of Buddha's teaching. If we could see the truth of Buddha's teaching, we wouldn't have to use up so many teachers. It wouldn't be necessary to listen to teachings every day. When we understand that we simply don't, when we understand, then we simply do what's required of us. Then we make, but what makes people so difficult to teach is that they don't accept the teaching and argue with the teachers and the teaching. In the front of the teacher, they behave little better, but behind his back, they become thieves.
Peace.
People are really difficult to teach. The people in Thailand are like this, that's why they have to have so many teachers. Be careful. If you are not careful, you won't see the Dhamma. You must be circumspect, taking the teachings and considering it well. Is this flower pretty? Do you see the ugliness within this flower? For how many days will it be pretty? When will it be like? What will it be like from now on? Why does it change so? In 3 or 4 days, you have to take a look at it. You- In 3 or 4 days, you have to take it and throw it away, right? It loses all its beauty. People are attracted to beauty, attached to goodness. If anything is good, they fall for it completely. The Buddha tells us at the Buddha tells us to look at the pretty things as just pretty. We shouldn't become attached to them. If things if there is pleasant feeling, we shouldn't fall for it. Goodness is no sure thing. Beauty is no sure thing. Nothing is certain. There is nothing in this world that is certainty. This is the truth. The things that aren't true are the things that change, such as beauty. The only truth it has is it in its the only truth it has is in its constant changing. If we believe that things are beautiful, when their beauty fades, our mind loses its beauty too. When things are no longer good, our mind loses its goodness too. When things are destroyed or damaged, we suffer because we have clung to them as being our own. The Buddha tells us to see that these things are simply constructs of nature. beauty appears and in not many days it fades. To see this is to have wisdom. Therefore, we should see impermanence. If we think something is pretty, we shouldn't fault ourselves. If we think something is pretty, we should tell ourselves it isn't. If we think something is ugly, we should tell ourselves it isn't. Try to see things in this way, constantly reflect in this way. We will see the truth within untrue things, seeing the certainty within the things which are uncertain. Today I have been explaining the way to understand the suffering, what causes the suffering, the cessation of suffering, the way leading to the cessation of the suffering. When you know the suffering, you should throw it out. Knowing the cause of the suffering, you should throw it out. Practice to the cessation of the suffering. See anicam dukkham anatta, and the suffering will cease. When suffering ceases, where do we go? What are we practicing for? We are practicing to relinquish, not in order to gain anything. There is a woman this afternoon who told me that she is suffering. I asked her what she wants to. I asked her what she wants to be, and she said she wants to be enlightened. I said, as long as you want to be enlightened, you will never become enlightened. Don't want anything. When we know the truth of the suffering, when we know the truth of suffering, we throw out suffering. When we know the cause of the suffering, then we don't create those causes, but instead practice to bring suffering to cessation. The practice leading to the cessation of suffering is to see that this is not myself, this is not my me. Seeing it in this way, we enable suffering to cease. It's like reaching our destination and stopping. That's cessation. That's getting close to Nibbana. This is to put it in another way. Going forward is suffering, retreating is suffering, stopping is suffering. Not going forward, not retreating, not stopping. Is anything left? It's a question he puts. Body and mind cease here. This is the cessation of suffering. Hard to understand, isn't it? If we diligently and consistently study this teaching, we will transcend things and reach understanding. There will be cessation. This is the ultimate teaching of Buddha, and it is the finishing point. The Buddha's teaching finishes at the point of total relinquishment. Should we stop it?
Cessation is happening. What is left? We'll begin again.
Enough, and
Questions?
So we have Deepti and Srinivasji online. Any questions, Deepti and Srinivasji?